All right, ready?
Yeah.
Sure.
We don't have a cold open, but that's okay.
Why
don't we have a cold
There's
open?
got to be something in there.
I was gonna make Dan for bringing up, make fun of Dan for bringing up moving again, and I was gonna say Heaven Hill so that we checked all the boxes that we need to check on every episode.
I didn't
Well,
say
there you
anything.
go. Now you have it.
A podcast about bourbon and the ones who drink it. This is Bourbon Matters. Welcome to Bourbon Matters. I'm Jake.
I'm Dan.
And I'm Gold Eagle Jake.
We're a little bit freewheeling tonight in terms of topic. We're gonna we got a comment from Patrick on YouTube that we're gonna address regarding Wilderness Trail,
Which is part of my draft, by the way.
which was Dan drafted last week.
Dan thought we were still in 2020.
Yeah, it was actually 2 weeks ago because Green River was last week.
Yeah.
In the release order. But then we're going to talk about a little bit more about acquisitions, that have taken place recently, like which ones worked, which ones didn't. And then we have some news to share about if anybody that went to the Lake County Whiskey Club birthday bash and used the secret code. What was it? Give me the Bourbon Matters pour.
Yeah, if you ask for the Bourbon Matters pour.
We're going to reveal what that bottle was and talk a little bit about that too. So we'll start off with Patrick's comment. So I think this was on the...
This was on the YouTube.
The YouTube?
Yeah, on the YouTube. I'm trying to remember which episode it was.
The draft.
It was the draft episode.
Because we just talked about it. How'd you forget already?
I
Jesus
needed
Christ.
to double check because I don't know. I'm coming off of just putting the kid down to sleep. So, all right. So the question is specifically to Gold Eagle Jake, what's going on with Wilderness Trail? What are your industry contacts telling you? He said they've fallen off the radar. I don't see any plugs for store picks anymore. Where are the higher age stated releases, limited edition, special releases, new concepts? They're about a top 10 in production, but they just seem to kind of have disappeared. Is this just another example of a large corporation snuffing the life out of an acquired brand? Can't just be focusing on increasing distribution, is contrasted against New Riff. Both of them are national brands, and New Riff is killing it in comparison.
All right, fully loaded points. Yes, fully loaded question. we're gonna kind of break this down into multiple parts, and probably gonna jump all over the place. You're gonna get some inside scoops. You're gonna get my personal takes, and we're all gonna discuss. So,
before we get into that, we should, for people that aren't super familiar with Wilderness Trail,
I was going to say, let's start with what's going on with Wilderness Trail.
Give a quick background, Dan, if you got it pulled up. When they started,
I don't, but I know enough about them. So they're just outside of Lexington, about a little southeast, southwest, somewhere in that direction.
Yeah, they're in Danville, they're kind of like on their own. But I think it's like 45 minutes south of Lexington, so it's not
too far. If you're in the Lexington area, if you hit a bunch of them, it's not too far out to get to. They started not that long ago. I think they started the same year Whiskey Acres did, which was 2015. And I thought it was, they started
2016. I think.
2016,
somewhere right around there. They started producing. They started with the same still setup that we had at Whiskey Acres, that they have at Whiskey Acres. I'm no longer there. So they started with a 500-gallon still, and it was almost like every year they were increasing production. They'd finish increasing production. They'd run for a little bit, and then they decided they needed to increase production a little bit more. They kind of sat on their stuff for a while and let stuff get to at least 4 years before they started releasing it. And when they came out, came out with pretty good whiskey right out of the box. Very rare for a new distillery to start coming out with quality stuff that much. We just listened to Green River. That's one that I would say very similar to, coming out with a really good product and really right in the right price point, the $40 range, $45 range.
Yeah. Also waiting for it to release before they
making sure they could get
to actually meet
making
the market.
sure they could get enough distribution to make it a name, and got pretty good reviews across the board from a lot of their different products they were coming out with.
And no gin, no vodka, no clears. They just waited, which I think it's also important to mention their background before starting the distillery is the FermPro Solutions. They, from what I understand, they provided yeast and yeast consultation to a lot of Kentucky distilleries and various other distilleries that were just starting up. So that's kind of where their background is, where they made a lot of their money from, which is why they were able to build and grow so fast without really releasing much whiskey. They figured if we know what yeast can do to make whiskey, then why aren't we making it ourselves?
Yep.
And I also think it's important to point out that they are sweet mash, and I feel like before they came out, nobody really understood or knew sweet mash because nobody was really doing it. But now we have them, Hard Truth, Castle and Key, and Peerless all doing sweet mash, and those all are fairly new distilleries in terms of recently getting back up and going and operating.
Yep. Then it was 2.5, 3 years ago they sold, or they got bought out, or however you want to say it. They didn't sell any of the yeast side of the company. It was just the distillery side. And from there on, it seems like you haven't heard a ton out of them.
I haven't really heard a thing.
Who bought them?
Campari,
who
owns Wild Turkey, and it's an Italian company, and they have a lot of liqueurs like Grand Marnier. They have Sky Vodka. The list can go on and on and on if you look these guys up. That's a pretty big company. They have a lot of various products from around the world.
We talked about them for quite a bit because the stuff was good. And Gold Eagle, Jake, that was one of your favorite distilleries you started talking about when you first started making guest appearances for us. Was talking a lot about them, enjoying their stuff. Had some really good barrel picks right off the bat that were doing very well. And then it's just something you don't see. And is it, I guess, so what have you been hearing? What have you been seeing? What do you know on the topic? We can give our own personal opinions of what we think about part of the reasons for Wilderness Trace, but let's start with you.
Well, let's start with the most obvious and biggest reason why they've maybe fallen off the map. When this buyout occurred, all of their key people left. So their national sales director, before the buyout went public, he was like, yeah, I'm going to go travel the world, and I don't know for sure if I'm coming back or not. So you had to think he might have gotten a little piece of that buyout. Macaulay, who started Dark Arts, Macaulay is a great guy, and he was their single barrel or barrel guru, single barrel coordinator, whatever you want to call him. And he was in charge of putting together the single barrel program and all of that. And he did a phenomenal job picking out barrels for that program. It was most of the samples that we got were pickable barrels. And these are all in the 4 to 6 year range. So their key people walk away. Now, when buyouts like this happen, I'm going to use Penelope for an example because I think that was a good buyout. The two founders of Penelope are still very, very hands-on with the distillery. They're still going to trade shows. They're still going to, different events and speaking about the company. They're still putting together blends and working behind the scenes on the brand, where they very well could have just walked away and retired. So
that one in particular, I think, is a bit more of like a partnership with MGP than a buyout,
even though it technically was a buyout, yes, they were already using MGP, so that was kind of just like a perfect fit. But if those two guys were to completely walk away and not have anything to do with Penelope anymore, who knows where that brand would be right now, because we know MGP doesn't do a good job of building their own labels.
Yeah.
I think when a buyout happens, no matter what industry you're in, it's very difficult to continue and develop even further without the same people who know the business and who have all the relationships within the industry. I mean, this is a huge relationship industry with the 3-tier system in most states, having to go through distributors, having to know the right people in the liquor stores. It's all about relationships. So losing those people immediately, I think we went a year or two without being contacted by anyone at Wilderness Trail, and they still don't have a rep as far as I'm aware. So I haven't heard from anyone at the distillery directly. I've only heard from my distributor who represents them, and he's only heard things because of his Campari contact, who comes into our store like once a year, and never really mentioned anything except for Wilderness Trail, except for, hey, if you guys want to do more Russell's barrel picks, we need you to pick a Wilderness Trail barrel. And we're still waiting on the Russell's barrel pick.
Especially with whiskey too. So we talk about it a lot. Whiskey's I think one of the things we'll see with the market changing a little bit is, like, the big guys aren't in trouble. I think a lot of the smaller people, the ones that have cooler stories, are going to be the ones that have a better chance of sticking around, because that's what people enjoy with the whiskey. It's the story of everything. And when you take the people that put all their blood, sweat, and tears to get this stuff off the ground and were working the 20-hour days and things, when they come to meet with you or talk to you at Gold Eagle at a master class or different stores or at trade shows, they sell you their passion, what they are passionate about. And when those people are just taking money and gone, which don't blame them, they got bought out, they don't need to be part of it anymore.
And you can tell.
That's fine, but you don't have the people there that have the exact same passion and the exact same enthusiasm for the product. I mean, look at, how much did Karen, Karen, like the passion that she had for her company. Like, you could see that coming through and got you excited, more and more excited about Green River. It's very hard for people to do that when they have zero connection with what they're trying to push.
Yeah, and I mean, those guys truly were with the distillery since day one. I think there were employees like 1 and 2 behind the 2 founders. So, to lose people like that, and I'm sure the Firm Pro guys, like, they still have their yeast company, so they're probably going back to being more focused on that. But what's also interesting here is Campari usually lets distilleries continue what they're doing. That's what they did with Wild Turkey, and that's what they said they were going to do here. But there's a few different parts of this as well. So I've heard rumors, and these are just rumors. I don't have any fact to back this up, but I heard rumors that they were buying Wilderness Trail to make all of Wild Turkey honey at Wilderness Trail, so they could free up the still at Wild Turkey to produce more Wild Turkey.
It's quite the capacity increase.
Yeah, I've also
for a shitty SKU like that.
I've also heard that they bought Wilderness Trail just for the rickhouse space, so that they could instantly have rickhouses, because Wilderness Trail was building and building and building nonstop with their rickhouses. So, they bought to have more rickhouses, and they're not too far away. They're about 45 minutes down the road. So, So I don't know who really knows. Nobody knows what their exact intentions were behind buying it, but obviously it seems like it's not to build Wilderness Trail as a distillery, because they've pretty much fallen off the map ever since.
You can still order it and everything,
we
right?
still order it, yeah. I mean, we have 2 really good barrel picks right now. We have a wheated bourbon and we have a rye whiskey, both barrel proof, both 5-year, I believe, which we're going to get into the age statement discussion with them in a little bit, because I know that was part 2 of the question. But yeah, why don't we just get into it? So Wilderness Trail, when they first came out with a 6-year, there was a lot of buzz behind it, and I think it was 100 proof, 6 years, and it was an $80 bottle. And I remember tasting it, and I wouldn't say like it definitely wasn't bad, but I was a little disappointed because the regular 5-year stuff that I've had off the shelf I thought tasted better, and it was 30 or $40 cheaper a bottle. Then they came out with an 8-year at one point, and it never released to the Illinois market. It was a distillery only thing, but we did a masterclass with them, and they brought a bottle that we all got to taste. And again, like, I think this one really let me down. It seemed too tanniny. It seemed like there just wasn't any balance to it, and not as much complexity and like good flavor on the palate compared to the 5-year stuff, and especially the barrel picks. So part of the reason of that is because when they started operating, they intended to come out with a young whiskey that tasted good. They air dry their staves a lot longer than the average distillery, which makes a huge difference on aging the whiskey quickly and flavorful. And yeah, I think their whiskey was kind of more meant to be in that 5 to 6 year range. Now, who knows? Maybe the reason we haven't heard much from them is because they are laying low and letting stuff age, and maybe they're about to come out with a 10-year or a 12-year, just completely, shock all of us. But I don't know. I would be shocked. I can say that I probably would doubt it.
Yeah, with the amount of capacity increases, that Dan was talking about, I'm surprised that they don't have like an annual, limited edition, something, even if it's just a finish or even like a cast strength, kind of thing. But like as far as I know, they only have the 3 SKUs: the wheated, the high rye bourbon, and the rye, and that's all they've ever had, besides the age statements that you just mentioned.
Yeah, and we've talked about the LE thing before. Like, you need something to get people really, really excited about your brand, because that's what will drive more sales on your core items throughout the year. And you might turn some new heads. Some people that never had Wilderness Trail, they're like, "Ooh, I gotta chase down this bottle," and then they might really like it, and then go for some of the other stuff. So yeah, I think it almost seems like they're not trying, right?
Yeah.
Like, they just bought it for the equipment. They're going to continue selling what they can sell, but they don't really care what happens.
Yeah. And it is interesting how rapidly they seem to have just vanished from the conversation, especially because they were such a promising brand out of the gate.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is weird.
Yeah, and it's super weird because when they first happened, we were worried that we weren't going to be able to get barrel samples because we were losing our contacts, or they would, make it like how they are with Russell's picks, and they kind of did do that. But they also, as we just talked about, killed their hype, so nobody was, searching for them, and they did fall off the radar for 2 years until they came back with picks. So I think a lot of people just kind of wiped them off and moved on to something else.
And the problem I think they're really going to run into now with trying to come back with picks now is every distillery is trying to do picks with not as much product moving. Mm-hmm. They're trying to get everyone to do picks. So now what used to be extremely hard to do, which was get companies to let you do barrel picks because they didn't have stuff aged long enough or things like that. is now everyone wants to get a barrel pick out to get a quick little boost of some sales, minus the big guys, but people that are in the craft distillery, which Wilderness Trace would be considered if they were by themselves, would be considered still craft. They'd be a large craft distillery, but their output. But yeah, it's going to be really hard to now, after taking a 2-year hiatus, to come back in and get people excited to do barrel picks when there's so many other options right out that are on the market right now.
Well, yeah, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago, but like, I think Jake, you said we're kind of like the ass end of the barrel pick craze, or at least the peak of the barrel pick craze. And
yeah, I mean,
starting to see things taper off a bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't say like the quality is tapering off.
Consumer excitement.
Yeah, unless you don't know what you're doing when you're picking a barrel, or if you're picking a barrel just to pick a barrel. Actually, the quality, I think, is, for us at least, has increased because we are able now to ask for more samples. We're able to be a little more choosy on what distilleries we do picks from. So I think the quality is better than ever. But yes, I do think the people are jumping on the craze, trying to get on the craze when it's kind of already left, just because everyone now is offering them.
Mm-hmm.
I think just kind of like going through Penelope, I do completely agree with the people that are with the company are making a huge difference. But it's also a pretty different scenario in the case that they were sourcing from MGP, and then MGP goes, we've always sucked at marketing. Here's a company that's doing pretty good with it. We can use them. Where this is different on the fact that these guys were making their own stuff, were completely reliant on themselves, and now it seems like they've just been lumped into to be the redheaded stepchild of Wild Turkey.
Yeah, but if Campari were to come in being such a big company that they are, and give all the employees a little pay boost, maybe give them some more benefits, and just be a really good company to work for. I'm not saying they're not, but it seemed like they definitely didn't care if people stayed or not. I think things would look a lot different, and they would look more like the Penelope. Like, they would have more excitement, especially with the money to back them up to do experiments with finishing and double oaking and different things like that.
Yeah, what's weird about it to me is that they left Wild Turkey like completely alone, or seemingly completely alone. But like, I mean, I don't know if Campari cleaned house at Wilderness Trail, or if it was just natural, that people left. But one way or the other, I don't think there was this kind of exodus at Wild Turkey when they were bought.
No, everyone's still there, and like Campari talks about how they keep companies running how they were before.
Which is
every other company has done that, which kind of makes me think that they have other plans with Wilderness Trail. Like, they did it for the space, they did it to expand Wild Turkey's production. I don't know.
Well, like, it's a pretty famous example is when Jim Beam got bought by Suntory. Suntory kind of came in and started trying to tweak stuff, and basically the entire staff at Beam was like, "We'll walk if you make us change anything." And then they kind of just let them be, which should be a big lesson learned in these giant acquisitions of American, particularly I think American whiskey companies, is like, don't come in here and tell us what to do. We've been doing this for a really long time.
No, it's funny you brought up Suntory, because I was just at Jim Beam this past weekend, and if you ever get to go in the Booker No Distillery, there's a letter in there from Booker to one of the investors, and they're basically, this is when he's coming out with Booker's bourbon for the first time, and they basically told him, like, hey, we think this would do better around 100 proof, blah, 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 let me know your thoughts. And he sends back a letter saying, like, no, there's plenty of that on the market. People want more. People want something different. This is what I'm doing, or I'm not doing it. And they were just like, okay. And we also discussed briefly how Centauri now is like what they say, like completely amazing, like letting them do their thing, like providing the resources whenever they need it, like great company to work for. So that's definitely cool to hear.
Yeah, we heard a similar story at Bardstown when we were there a couple of years ago, that when they got bought by Pritzker Capital, they basically came in and said, like, we don't want to change anything, just do what you want to do, but here's money. Which is like the message that you want to hear in an acquisition, especially of a successful brand. So yeah, the Wilderness Trail one is pretty perplexing, I'd say.
It is. I mean,
especially with all these other successful acquisitions and like really good models.
I think something that would be an interesting case study to look at too is another one that I think is right in line with them is, and maybe I've not seen some of this stuff just because I don't spend nearly as much time in a liquor store as what I used to, is Jefferson. And we talk about doing unique thing because Jefferson used to have like those different aged kits to age tasting, or the different wood finish kits that you could try and things. And they were doing a lot of creative stuff. Pernod Ricard bought them out. And they got a lot of money to build their own distillery because they were sourcing. But like, I don't see anything. Like, I remember it used to be fun and exciting to get a Jefferson small batch, which was a good $35 bottle at the time, 3-4 years ago.
I mean, it's still, I think it's $29.99 or $34.99. We have it for one of the two.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jefferson's is a great example. Like those wood finishing kits, if there was ever a time to come out with something like that, it would be right now. Like, why is nobody doing that? Like stuff like that is what the consumer wants, and you can experiment for yourselves for larger production. And if it doesn't taste that good, oh well, bottle it, sell it in the kit, and because that's what people just want to see. Like, what's going on? What's this wood gonna do? What's that wood gonna do? I've never tried, this tiki wood or whatever.
Yeah,
but I
mean, they're the same thing. They're not. I mean, you don't see much out of them anymore. When we first started this, one of my favorites was Jefferson Twin Oak back in the day. And like, you don't even see a lot of that stuff anymore.
You see a little bit, but it's very hit or miss, and there's like no marketing or no schedule on what's coming out. Like they just came out with a month ago a 130 proof. I have not had it yet. It's going to be at the birthday bash, so I'm going to try it there. But it's an $80 bottle, 130 proof, no age statement.
That's one thing that hurt him was, what was that one that came out a little over a year ago that was like a $300 and some retail bottle?
The Mary McLean one?
Yeah, the purple logo.
I heard a lot of really good feedback on that, but
I definitely think he poured that for me at the bar, and it was just like whatever.
I think we poured it at one of our high roller blinds. But yeah, I thought it was meh, and especially for $300. But there was a lot of people that actually really liked it, and we sold through a decent amount of those. But I think there was more of a story behind it too. And at that time, Jefferson's had a pretty solid following and hadn't really done anything high end like that.
It seemed like they were kind of riding the ocean, hype for a while, and just making like a crap ton of batches of the Jefferson Ocean.
Well, they started doing this tropics thing where they age.
Yeah, that one too.
Yeah, where they age the whiskey in different parts of the world, which I think that's cool. But like, that's something I would want in a little kit. Like, give me Jefferson's Ocean, 5, 100 ml, 200 ml sample kit, and each one is the same age, same mash bill, same type of barrel, but aged in a different country.
Yeah, don't make me buy 5 different full-size bottles to try.
They were selling those for like 80 to 100, weren't they?
Yeah, I think we still have them. We have them for 80. One of the tropics, but see, yeah, that would be a very fun tasting. But if you're, and they've only come out with one, I think. So like they're coming out with them in one after the other. So yeah, I would have liked to see them come out with a little kit with all those in there, and who knows, maybe they will. Doubt it.
I don't know. A lot of this stuff I don't think if you're coming out with right now is stuff starting to slide. It's going to be a little too late to come out with it, and people are just going to kind of get tired of it. So,
yeah.
What other parts of the question haven't we discussed yet?
I think we touched on all the parts of Wilderness Trail.
I don't think that they purposely bought them to snuff them out just so they could sell more
wild
turkey stuff. I think what they were doing was, I think if anything, like what Jake said, using them as more as a production facility and Rickhouse facility, and keep the brand going, but they weren't going to put a lot of time and effort behind it.
No, I don't think they saw them as a threat to wild turkey. They 100%. I think if anything, they did it for the equipment, the space to expand. So yeah. I mean, sometimes there's such a small little thing that they're just like, this is invaluable. If we get this and whatever else comes with it, then we'll be happy.
Yeah. So part 2 of the question was about Starlight. Do we want to dive into Starlight?
Yeah, we can dive into Starlight.
So Patrick said more just giving his opinion on it. Starlight does not have a characterful distillate. No reason they should still be releasing 4 to 5 year old whiskey in dozens and dozens of different finishing casks. Their products are overabundant. And they should just let the whiskey age.
Well, Patrick, you answered your question. You said they don't have a characterful distillate. There's no reason they should be releasing 4 to 5 year old whiskey in finishing casks.
That's why they're to release it.
Well, yes. Starlight is definitely a brand that has halted compared to where they were 4 years ago when they were absolutely on fire. I've been to Starlight. It's a phenomenal property. The family is awesome. So I don't really have a lot of negative things to say about Starlight. But Patrick, I do agree. There is no reason that we shouldn't be seeing older whiskey from them. And I know it's coming. Like, they are planning on letting stuff age, but they had to have seen a dip in their demand for all of these finishing casks that they're doing. Hence why they're pumping out a lot more. It used to be really, really hard to get a honey barrel from them or the cigar batch from them. And now you start kind of seeing it everywhere.
Mm-hmm. I think there is a little buyer fatigue on that too, because even just like walking into one of the big chain liquor stores in the Chicagoland area, like, you can still walk in there and there is 10 to 12 different Starlight barrel picks just sitting on the barrel pick shelf, and every single one's different. And I think it's just, when you do so much of that all in a short period of time, and maybe it was them, maybe it was the store not to be named. But I think when you go in and there's so many different options, it's like, well, I don't know which one to pick. And then you just let them sit. And then now there's 12 different barrel picks sitting there. It's like, well, no one's buying these. Why should I buy these? I think it's part of their issue too. I think it was just a little more, too much overexposure for them.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on this somewhat recently, I think, too. But I think we're seeing a little bit of like finishing fatigue in the market. I think people are, a little bit tired of seeing everything finished in something. Like, there's a time and a place for a well-finished bourbon or a well-finished rye. I think Amberana was one of the things I think that might have killed the hype of finished whiskeys.
Yeah, you also got to give Starlight props because they were, from off the top of my head, the first place to do Amberana.
Yeah, that's true.
In American whiskey. I'm sure there was probably someone else, but like, when you thought of Amberana, you thought of Starlight Cigar Batch.
Yeah.
And so to just go back on them a little bit, like, their time and place to do the finishing stuff was in 2018, 2021, that range, because that's when people really were finishing curious, and it kind of changed the game a little bit. And they did build their business on their finishing. Like, what they talked about and what they were prideful about was how they tasted the barrels every couple days when they were in the finishing cask, waiting for the perfect moment to take it out. And that's cool. Like if that's your business and, you're really focused on the finishing, and I mean, they know what they're doing. I've never had a poorly finished product. Is most of their product worth $80 for a 4 or 5 year finish? Probably not. If it was 50 or 60, like they would probably do a lot better. But the whiskey is always good. It's just questionable if it's worth that price that it sits on the shelf.
Yeah, I mean their hallmark was definitely how balanced, their finishing was compared to the raw, product. Which I think a lot of let's say lazier distillers kind of came out and just made like over finished product, and
or just like really hit or miss.
Part of the burnout I think is just like,
but like
I don't want to taste just like blueberries if you're going to do a blueberry finished bourbon. I want to taste bourbon with a little bit of blueberries.
So I got to give them props there. Like they were very good about well balancing their finished product. They're very good at that. But once that craze kind of passed, it was time for them to slam on the brakes, let stuff age, come out with some 8-year stuff, come out with some 10-year stuff, which they should have by now, but they don't. And they've expanded they've been around for 7 generations, but they only started making whiskey, I think, 10 to 15 years ago, 15 at most. So they're fairly new to making whiskey. They were making wine before they were making whiskey. And they've expanded their whiskey business a lot. Like they had one little barn rickhouse to start. Now they have that and like 2 full-size rickhouses, and they added another column still, like a huge column still. I can't remember the exact height, but it was pretty big. So we're going to see some more from them. Hopefully that, yes, they're letting the stuff age and realize that they don't need to keep pumping out all these different finishes.
Yeah. All right. Anything else on Starlight?
I don't think so. I think, thanks Patrick for a great question.
That was a great question.
A great multi-part question, and also for basically building my case. I had a better draft because we didn't talk about anyone else's draft pick nearly this much. So I think that makes me the de facto winner of the draft.
Well, we almost talked about mine, but Jake lied to us about Old Elk getting bought. So,
well, I don't know. Possibly, we don't know for sure.
We don't know what the source of the information was.
Don't go on record yet.
Yeah, no on record that happened. But but Patrick, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the questions. Keep bringing more good questions in that are for good discussion topics. Learn our thoughts on those things. Before we go, we need to talk about the birthday bash. I had a blast when I was there, guys. What about you?
So we're recording this before the birthday bash, but it will come out 1 week after the birthday bash.
So as you're still recovering from a hangover 1 week later from the birthday bash, listen to this.
Yeah. So at the birthday bash, last time Matt was on, we talked about how there's a secret pour. Hopefully everybody got to try it, or most of you got to try it. We'll reveal the winner probably in a Facebook post on the Lake County Whiskey Club page if anybody actually guessed it correctly. But we'll reveal that it was or will be Kentucky Owl batch number 11.
Do they got to guess the exact batch?
No.
Okay.
If they guess Kentucky Owl, that'll be impressive.
What if I leak this information?
Enough. Then you're fired.
Don't leak the information. Yeah, you're fired. So this is 118.8 proof. It's from 2021. This batch in particular is really interesting because it is the last batch that the original founder, Dixon Dedman, crafted himself before he left the company after being acquired, which is kind of circles back to what we were talking about earlier
of a very poor acquisition.
Yeah, I don't remember
the people.
Do you remember who bought them?
Stoli,
that's right. So yeah, I think you probably know a little bit more about why he left, but basically what I had heard was they kept trying to tell him he needed to make more and more expensive bottles, and at some point he was like, "This is insane! Like, I can't make a bottle that's $1,000, even if I had like a 200-year-old whiskey. Like,
yeah, so."
Like, we're not just going to dress this up in like a wooden box and sell it to people at an outrageous price, you know?
Yeah, that's basically...
So he kind of just took all of his stock and left.
Yeah, that's basically what it is, and it's not really public knowledge, but his non-compete is over, obviously, because he has 2XO now, but we were hanging out with him down in Kentucky, I think it was a year after he got bought, and right after he left. But yeah, that's basically what he told us. They were telling him, all right, we need you to use these barrels and create a $400 bottle. And he told him the same thing, like, okay, can't really do that. Like, bourbon's not that expensive, and I don't want to charge $400 for my bottle. Like, I want more people to access it and drink it. Fast forward, when the dry state came out, which was $1,000 bottle, they didn't tell him that they were going to charge that much. They just said, we need you to make the best whiskey you've ever made. Like, this is going to be a very special release. And they decided to charge $1,000. Not only did they do that, but they proofed it down without telling him so they could get more bottles out of the release. He had it at cash strength. I think it was around like 120, and I believe they proofed it down closer to 100. And didn't even tell him. They just added the water just to make it a bigger release and get more bottles out of it. And the coolest part about that story is he had some bottles that he took home before that happened and let us taste what should have been the dry state.
You can still find it online for $1,400. It does have a very, very nice wood box on it.
Oh yeah.
And look at this.
It lights
limited
up.
edition, like paper verification.
Ooh.
That it's Kentucky Owl Dry State, with like a little receipt, like a little handwritten receipt at the bottom. Just 2,000 bottles exactly. They didn't proof it down, Jake. It just magically came out to exactly 2,000 bottles.
Yeah. So yeah, that pretty crappy story. Imagine what would have happened to Kentucky Owl if they just did what Campari did to Wild Turkey and say, hey, keep doing your thing. We're going to give you some money to start, building this even better and getting more barrels. But no, now he's got 2XO, which that could have all been Kentucky Owl.
Yeah. I mean, we were big fans of Kentucky Owl before he left. The bottle that I had at my wedding was, I think, batch 10, if I'm remembering correctly. Dan does not remember at all because it's all he drank that night.
I
was sober. I was 100% sober.
Any of those earlier batches were phenomenal blends. And
the rye was also really good.
Yeah,
we had that at my bachelor party.
I mean, the first couple of batches of rye were showstoppers, but
which I think he only made 4
Jake thinks
rye
batches. Is fantastic.
Wow, no, but those were really special.
They were
breaking
killer.
ground.
But yeah, so that is an example of a poor acquisition. What could have been is now something else. 2XO. But yeah.
Speaking about exciting acquisitions, if people want to acquire exciting whiskey, Jake, where can they acquire exciting whiskey at?
I was wondering where you were going with that. Like, are we about to get bought out here at Bourbon Matters?
No one's giving us money for this shit. Are you kidding me?
They're buying us out to get us off the air. They don't want to listen anymore.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to get to 500 listeners every week so I can get my Manscaped sponsor and shave my balls for free. But
yeah,
we're trying. But yeah, if you want to purchase any of these bottles, you can do so at goldeaglewine.com. Come visit us in Libertyville. Download our app. Follow us on Instagram at Gold Eagle Wine. Follow us on Facebook at Gold Eagle Spirits. We now ship to 40 states. That is shipping spirits to 40 states. So if you're a listener from far away and you're in one of those 40 states, check us out.
Is that anything on the website?
Anything on the website.
Even bags of chips?
Even bags of chips. And believe it or not, somebody has ordered bags of chips for shipping on the website. And come to find out, it was a bag of Fritos where the flavor was discontinued. So someone just probably searching on Google found us that we had the Fritos in stock and ordered them for shipping. But yeah,
that's a little bit more fair. But.
Yeah, everything except for kegs we will ship.
Fancy.
Yeah.
And Jake, where can people leave us more comments?
Oh, you know what? Sorry. Should I give a Wilderness Trail coupon code?
I was wondering if you're going to or not. I was going to force you because sometimes I force you to give. I've just like led you into coupons.
I mean, you could have said it and I would have been nah, but
I thought about it. But
Dan tries to give out coupon codes like he owns the store.
I do because it's more fun to watch Jake be like, I wasn't going to give out a coupon code. Sometimes now I'm an asshole if I don't.
Yeah, no. Sometimes it's good to remind, but I do firmly believe we have two really, really good barrel picks right now. We've got a barrel proof wheated bourbon that I think we're down to just our last 2-3 cases. And then we have a rye barrel pick where if you like minty, toasty ryes, this one is right up your alley. They're both reasonably priced, right around $55. But I will give you a coupon for 10% off if you buy those online. The code is BMW Trail. That's a cool coupon code.
Very cool.
BMW Trail.
Speaking about less cool things, Jake.
Nice.
That's just cool. No, where can people watch us, listen to us, leave comments, get their questions or if they want to hear our thoughts on a topic? Where can they do all that at?
Yes, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts, or pretty much any other podcast platform. Watch us on Spotify and YouTube. Leave comments. I do check all the platforms. Actually, just kidding. I only check Spotify and YouTube. I haven't checked Apple or Google in a really long time. So if you're leaving a bunch of comments on Apple Podcasts and I'm not listening to you, sorry. Go to YouTube and leave a comment.
That's a great message to people. Do things that are inconvenient for the listeners. Love it. Good message, Jake.
But I'm not actually sure if you can leave a comment on Apple Podcasts. Now I think about it.
You're the greatest producer that's probably ever done podcast producing.
I do my best.
Do your best at a lot of things. And a lot of things.
I'm the only reason this show's still on. So.
No, I would say the listeners are the only reason this show is still on. Not you. All right, boys.
All right, Dan's going to edit this episode.
No, I'm not.
Prove me wrong.
You don't edit anyways.
I don't.
All right, boys.
All right.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.